A very warm welcome evening to you. My name is Peter Subi, aka Ramsey, aka Subi the Boy. So you know very well, in Subi Boy TV, we normally bring to you some educative lessons and some educative videos concerning you as a Kenyan or you as a person in this country, and you want to learn some new things, maybe some new agricultural techniques. So in our today's segment of agriculture, I want to meet my great friend Michael Ndolo. You've seen this guy. I've interviewed him concerning the issue of aquaculture, and he has also some other agricultural activities that he is doing. And maybe I just move towards where he is today. I want to teach you major things on how one can do a zero grazing farming of rearing some cattle, and maybe get some wonderful produce and some wonderful a product from such and such activity. So joining me live as I'll be interviewing one of these most known farmer here in Chuka University, so that maybe he might teach us on some things concerning the cattle. I know maybe you as a farmer, you have been experiencing some challenges maybe when rearing some cattle there back at home. There are some things that maybe you will wish to learn, and I believe this is the right place for you to learn these new things. So right about now in front of me there is this intelligent man who maybe I'll just give him a chance to introduce himself and maybe tell us what he has prepared for us today. So good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Subi.
So tell us, maybe remind them your name.
Oh, my name is still Michael Ndolo, the biology specialist, but also a very, very eloquent on the matters concerning the animals and also agriculture, because that is the backbone of the food actually in Kenya and also in the world together.
Yeah.
So today we'll just share something about the husbandry and how we make sure that the conservation management of the zero grazing are catered for. I think that is the smallest thing that we can share about today, and make sure that people are aware of maybe some of the little challenge they can have some little solution when we share some of the things that we're going to share. Yes, sir.
Wow. I know you are so much curious to see how these animals are. I can see even they are having some mattress. You know, maybe in just a few, maybe now tell our viewer now how do one begin such an agricultural process or an agricultural activity?
So thank you, Mr. Subi. So I think this one is also require very little space. As you can see, we have a very little space that even you can just design and make sure that everything is okay. It does not need more for you to have sure to set up such a thing. So if I don't have much to say, I just can tell you brief something why, because I said you just want to talk about the husbandry, and the reason why you can see this one they call the Fresian. So the Fresian is the large productive of milk. So I have some of them here, and I think what I can concern that they have some of the advantages that I say that why do we rear something? We have to look for the advantages and make sure if there are some disadvantages, we make sure we reduce them.
Yeah.
So as you can see, we have the Fresian, which is always giving us, if you can see one, it was only giving me some about 20 liters of milk. If there's in normal conditions, you are giving me 20 liters of milk per kettle if you do it well. And apart from that, remember when we slaughter the animal, we have some meat you can have for your enjoyment. At the same time, the meats have some beneficial to your human diet.
Mm-hmm.
So apart from that, I think I'll just talk about the abandon, the conservation. How can you make sure this thing is okay? How can you make sure that you make sure, because the zero grazing is very critical, because the animal does not move around to make sure to do some of the exercise. How can you make sure they minimize, because animals also need some little exercise to make sure that the metabolic reaction and everything is okay for them. So as you can see, when you are coming, I do mentioning some of the mattresses that we're seeing that they are sleeping there. So this one is always catered for, at least so that we minimize now the coldness from the ground, because as animal is behaving like the cattle are behaving like human beings together, because they can be affected by some of the things called a pneumonia. Animals also have pneumonia. So we prevent them so that they are not directly to the cold environment. So we minimize that, make sure that the temperature is very, very optimal. And you can see around there it is very clean, and you can see inside there is very clean, and make sure that we clean it in the morning, in the evening, so that at least we minimize the fecal around the waste that they produce around. Because remember, we have a certain bacteria which is very dangerous and is also very beneficial to this animal. Why do we keep this clean? So the reason why you want to make sure that when you have a zero grazing, the one consideration that to make sure everything is okay and you minimize some of the diseases, because these freshers are very expensive to afford one. So you make sure you minimize most of the things that are not going to make sure that you have some of the diseases. So we have a disease known as a bacteria known as Escherichia coli. So this one is what known as gastrointestinal tract. When I talk about gastrointestinal tract, it resides inside the gut of the animals. That's how it has some of the beneficial, because it helps in bone formation and most of the things. Now this bacteria, it is found also in the urinary tract. That's how. So that's why we make sure that the place is very clean and the waste product are taken away. So because when this bacteria only affect these animals when their immunity go down. So when the immunity is very low, the bacteria is going to affect the animal and going to bring some of the diseases that can give you a big loss to the animal. So the cleanliness is the major thing that we are considering here, that we make sure that one is considered. Apart from that, as you can see, the animals have a very clean eating cages. That's how. And also we have the drinking cages around. You can see them and make sure that and also you have some little space inside that make sure they walk around and make sure the body metabolic reaction and the exercises are catered for. So that's some of the few things that I think are considered usually in a husbandry management. Make sure that everything is okay. So the major thing, you make sure the management and the clean environment for this animal. And most of the things, even the zoonotic diseases, we have some of the diseases that affect this animal, and you can affect human beings, those that are handling them around, even in milking purposes. Even if the udder is with these fresh, and when they are having a lot of males, the udder can become below even the ground, can even touch the ground, and if they touch the ground, they can have been affected by the one known as the mastitis. There's some wounds that are coming from the teats of the animals. That's how. So if you maintain the cleanliness, even the bacteria that are around cannot infect this animal, and everything is okay. So the cleanliness is the major thing that you have to consider when you are talking about this. So I don't think if there's any thing else, unless you have a question, I can you can ask me. Yeah.
So my viewer, I know you have listened to the words of intelligence and the eloquence from our great farmer here. So he has shared with you some of the things concerning the rearing of this cattle in this zero grazing unit. And I know you are so much curious maybe to know what are the kinds of food and the other things that maybe he put in place to ensure that these animals are in a good condition. So like, for example, which kind of food he is fed to this animal, because like as you can see, the animals are very, very much healthy, and and like he has told you earlier on, he has said that these animals produce even up to 20 liters of milk, and that if you multiply with the current money that we are having here in Kenya right now, you will get a lot of money from these animals that you are having here. So maybe I'll just tell our farmer now to teach us on the kind of food, the kind of other maybe let's say like the other commodities maybe he's putting in place, so that he can ensure that these animals they are in a good condition and they end up serving him well. You know very well there is animals also, they become sick and they require to be treated, and he will just tell us on the things that maybe he's putting in place so that maybe you can be able to get some a wonderful kind of project like this one. So tell us.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I start from the word feeding, from how the mode of feeding and which type of feed that we give these animals. So we have different categories of feeding to these animals. So we have the fodder crops and also the concentrate. So the concentrate, the one that are commercial that you have to buy for them, like salt licks. You have to buy them to increase some of the ions in the body and minerals to make sure, as I explained prior, that the animals are living like human beings. They need some of the carbohydrates, they need the proteins, they need the salts in it. So we have they just have different formation if you compare with the human being. So here we have the napier grass that we use as the fodder crop. So the napier grass is the one that we use to make sure that they provide for them the carbohydrate parts. So we have the concentrate that we buy, so that we supplement them with the proteins. And also we have the salt lick that I mentioned, make sure that ions are catered for. So those are some of the feeds that we give these animals, because this one is a zero grazing. So we have, even the fodder crop, we have to cut them and make sure we bring them in the place and make sure that they feed from the place that they are. So coming to you have asked some of the how we maintain, make sure that the diseases are considered and everything that one. So as I mentioned earlier, we do something called regular deworming to ensure that the internal parasites are catered for, and also we do some spraying. We do spray every week. After 7 days we do that one regularly. We make sure that one is catered for. And also we have inspection, a veterinary that is always coming to inspect the animals after some period of time. Usually when we have the one that has which is expectant, so that we minimize what known as the breach. The breach now, it is the abnormal giving birth. So to make sure that when the animal is expectant or is pregnant, we make sure that it is undergoing some of the medical checkup, so that we make sure the giving birth is normal, and make sure that the small one that is being given out as no abnormalities. And those are some of the things that we make sure we put in place to ensure that their condition are okay and the benefit is more. Yes.
Wow. This is so much interesting. It is even getting more and more interesting. And I think I'll even start a zero grazing.
Yes,
maybe
in fact, you need to do that.
Yes. Zero grazing. It is so nice, because there are a lot of advantage when somebody do this zero grazing unit in his or her own piece of land or a piece of shamba, because it requires a little space. When you compare this to the one you're moving from one place to another, even some animals, they are susceptible to get some injuries and also some pests. Maybe you tell us. I know a little bit of some agriculture, and maybe you just now because you compare them, the knowledge.
Okay. So
now tell us.
So the reason why this one is so okay, and we make sure that it is so much beneficial than the other one. So the other one, we call them zebu. The zebu animals are the one that are moving out with you see the pastoralist moving with them here and there. So remember, the zebu animal, they take long distance looking for food and water, and during this process they undergo the stress. So if they undergo the stress, they cannot give you much products that you need together. And at the same time, they are moving in a large groups. And when we are moving in a large group, let's take an example. One animal is infected with certain diseases, and when they are in our group, these animals are now predisposed to some of the diseases that they are going to be disposed in a very large number, because they are interacting with a large number of animals. So for example, in case of a disease, we can refer, for example, for human being, we had a corona epidemics. So for example, let me say for the epidemic for the animals, in case of there's a certain epidemic and the zebu animal, and because they are moving in a group and moving in different places, it's very, very easy for this animal to die very, very fast. But this one, we make sure we monitor them together. So the different with the animal, the other one, they do some of the exercise, a lot of exercise, that at least try to minimize. That is the disadvantage that we have with zero grazing. They have little exercise. But the other one, this one have more advantages, because first of all, the diseases, we have make sure we put most of the precautions to make sure they're not susceptible or predisposed. And when I talk about predisposing, it means that, for example, if an animal has been injured when it was moving, maybe in the grazing looking for water, an animal, now maybe the animal has a wound. When an animal having a wound, remember that one is now a penetrating area of a bacteria. Together. Now, there is no predisposing factor. When the animal can be bitten by somebody or whatever, so there is a predisposing factor. So at least those ones are minimized in zero grazing. The animal have been predisposed to injury and everything. Make sure the area does not have something that can injure the animals. And also remember, when I talk about the milk production is very high, the meat is very clean. You see, now that one now is the major bigger difference. So the zero grazing has a more benefit than the one that we are outside that we categorize as the zebu animals, because these ones are less susceptible to some of the diseases, because also their immune system are more developed, because they are undergoing some of the treatment and natural conservation. We conserve them, we give them in a very natural conservation, and at the same time the artificial part is catered for. But the other one is just only natural part that is catered for. The artificial one is always lessly considered.
Wow. I'm even it is even getting much interesting. Like you have seen here, what we are having here, these are the Frisian kettles, and we are also having, like he has told you, that this animal they are productive in terms of milk, and their young ones, those ones are the calves. So I believe he has a unit, because I've not seen the calves here.
Yeah.
So we will just proceed with our farmer to other units. Maybe he will show us how he manages the calves also, because it is also a part of the rearing of the cattle today. So don't forget to click the subscription button on the screen, and as we are proceeding here with my farmer here, he will just teach us on the things that one requires to do the rearing of the calves and so on. So maybe you had something to say.
Yes, before we end up, because I forgot to mention about the calf. Remember, the calves are not around. If you compare with the Zebu one, the calves are always just around. So the calf, remember, these animals that produce a large amount of milk. And if we leave the calf with the nini, with the animals, they're going to consume a lot of milk, and this one is going to be some of the disadvantage to the young ones. So because the little one has a minimum requirement for it to have that amount of milk. So therefore, we take the calves in a different unit. Then after milking the animal, we go and measure, and make sure before we measure, then we make sure the milk is very clean, free from diseases, and we make sure even the upcoming calf is very, very free away from the diseases. That's why we see them are kept away from the mother, so that at least we minimize that one from being infected. Because if we leave them here, they're going to save a lot of milk, which are going to bring some of the diseases that I think I can explain.
If we reach that
I'll
point.
explain. Yeah.
So don't usibonyeze kidude mtazamaji. Let's just proceed to where the calves are, and we will learn more from there. Like you have seen right now, we are at where the calves are, and maybe I'll just give the mic to one of our great farmers here in Chuka University, maybe to tell us now what is it entail to do the calf rearing. So tell us now, Michael.
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, remember that the calf are different units, as you can see here. They have been being separated from the mother. The main reason why we place calf here, first of all, they are being minimized from the injury. You know, the mother has a high large weight, so when if the mother step on them, they can be predisposed to some of the diseases that I mentioned. And also remember that the calf, as I mentioned earlier, they require a certain percentage of milk, so that they can have a healthy life, and also to ensure that everything is okay. So that's why we separated them from the mother, so that we ensure when we have milk, we come here and measure the amount of milk that. So before we measure the amount of milk, remember, we also look at the weight of the calf, because remember the calf is growing, so there's a certain age or a certain weight when the animal is given a certain amount of milk. When it's growing, it's given us, so that one is what we consider. That now give us very easy time to make sure that we monitor that together. And also apart from that, we make sure that they feed. So we have a certain age now they start feeding. Now also we now start introducing them now to the type of feed that we are giving to their parent, or the mother, the fodder crop and the percentage. But now the percentage of giving them now at the same time will consider the type of weight and the size together. So the amount of fodder that I'm giving the mother, or the amount of carbohydrate and I'm giving the mother, will be different than the mother I'm going to give the calf. So I'm going to make sure that I limit depending on the age and the size of the calf as it grows up. So because we are doing it that slowly and step by step, to ensure that they adapt, so that we don't interfere with anything concerning the body of this animal. Make sure that they are healthy. And lastly, thing that we make sure environment at the same time is very clean. And also, as you can see now, is when they have just it was just clean 1 hour ago, and I think they're going to do it that. The person is responsible for the cleaning, and they're going to do it. And also you can see them, they're very healthy. And at the same time, the same to the parents, this one also be taken under the veterinary monitoring, and make sure that the disease, that they're free from diseases, and make sure that everything is okay. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. As you can see, these calves, they are really healthy and very strong. So the reason he has explained a lot. I don't know if it is necessary for me to repeat what he was trying to say. He has been trying to elaborate on the importance of why he's doing. He separated the calves from the mother. He has said that he separated these calves so that they avoid getting injured by the mother, and also they avoid being exposed to some diseases that the mother and the nini have, because these calves, they are really sensitive to some diseases, and they need to be raised in a separate environment so that they can be managed. he has talked about giving the milk. You know, the calves do not feed directly from the mother because they can be exposed to some diseases, or some of the milk can be contaminated. So it is very easy to check the milk first before giving them to the calf, so that when this calf they are feeding from the milk, they are in a position of taking a milk which is free from any other contamination. So maybe you just give us your finalizing remarks, maybe concerning these calves. You remember, these calves also, maybe they are experiencing some stress, and maybe when they are crowded, they can, maybe you tell us.
Okay, so remember, the management and conservation is always very, very common to them, because if we are doing a monitoring, we make sure that we do to them. And what I just forget to mention is the exercise. So there are sometimes that we take out the calf around a certain very clean surface and make sure that they do some little exercise. Then we bring them back to make sure that their strength are very okay. And also, you can see we also minimize the temperature, because the immune system are still low, because they are still growing. Make sure, you know, if you look at the mother there, the mother also was having a place where the sunlight was entering, but here it is very close, and make sure the shade is more than compared to the mother, so that to minimize the direct sunlight that can enter and infect some stress. So I think that is the few things that we are doing, and some of the major and minor management that we are doing, and some of the things that make sure that they're healthy. I think that is what we can share. Next time if you come, I think we'll share more about the calves.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you so much. I think we have really exhausted a lot concerning the issue of rearing of calves. Like you have seen, these calves are really healthy, and I believe you're going to use this knowledge maybe at some point and start a zero grazing farming in your house, in your farm, or in your enterprise. So this is none other than Peter Subi, your one and only news presenter. So thank you so much, Michael, for giving us this wonderful guidance and wonderful words that we can use, and wonderful skills that a farmer can use out there when he is doing or she is doing the farming around his or her own place. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.